It's a quiet morning in a small neighborhood. The sun is just starting to rise, casting soft light across the street. At the end of the block, in a modest home, lives a man who's seen more than most could ever imagine. He's a veteran, someone who served his country for years, with memories of battles and moments that never fade. His name is Jack, but around here he's just the guy with the bike. Jack's bike isn't just any bike, it's his pride and joy, something he's worked on for years. The paint is scratched, the leather seat is worn, but to Jack, it's perfect. It's not the newest or the flashiest, but it's special. He calls it freedom. It's his escape, his way of remembering the good times, the sense of adventure he once had. Every morning Jack takes the bike out for a ride. It's not just about the wind in his hair or the exercise, it's about the feeling of freedom. He's been through so much in his life, and this bike represents something simple but important. Peace. He keeps it in his garage, locked up tight. He's careful about it. He knows the value of things, the importance of taking care of what you love. His neighbors have seen him with it countless times, always riding around the neighborhood, a man at peace with his past and present. But Jack doesn't know that today, his bike is about to face something it's never seen before. There are people watching, people who think they can take it from him, and they don't know what kind of man they're about to face. Not far from Jack's house, a group of young men gather in a dimly lit alley. They're a gang, known around the area for causing trouble. They don't care about rules or respect, they take what they want. Today they've set their sights on something different. They've spotted Jack's bike. The gang consists of 3 members. There's Tony, the leader, who thinks he knows everything. He's tall, tough, and speaks with a confidence that makes others listen. Then there's Mike, who's quick with his hands and never afraid to get into a fight. He's always eager to prove himself. Finally there's Jimmy, the youngest of the 3, still figuring out what it means to be part of the gang, but he's already learned to follow orders without question. They've been planning this for days. Tony has noticed Jack's bike, always parked in the same spot, never moved. It's too easy, he thinks. They can just walk up, take it, and no one will even know. A quick job, in and out. Today's the day, Tony says with a smirk, tapping his fingers against the wall. That old man doesn't even know what's coming. Mike grins, cracking his knuckles. He won't put up much of a fight. We'll be out of here before he even notices. Jimmy looks a bit uncertain, glancing at Tony. You sure about this? I mean, it's just a bike. Tony's eyes narrow. Don't question me, kid, just do what I say. We take the bike, sell it, and we're out. Simple. The plan is set. The gang is confident. They're used to taking what they want without resistance. They don't know Jack, nor do they realize that today, things won't go as they expect. The sun is higher in the sky now, the neighborhood slowly coming to life. People walk their dogs, kids play in their front yards, but at the end of the street, everything feels unusually quiet. Jack is inside, sipping his coffee, unaware of the 3 figures making their way toward his garage. The gang moves slowly, their footsteps soft on the pavement. They're careful not to draw attention. Tony leads the way, his eyes locked on the garage door where Jack's bike sits just inside, as always. Mike walks beside him, looking around to make sure no one is watching. Jimmy trails behind, his eyes wide with nervous energy. He's never done something like this before, but he follows Tony without hesitation. They reach the driveway, and for a moment they just stand there. The bike is there, resting against the wall, the gleaming frame standing out in the otherwise empty garage. It's even more beautiful up close than they expected. Tony eyes the lock on the garage door. We'll have to break it, he says quietly. He's already got a crowbar in his hand, but this is nothing. We're in and out. Mike nods, pulling out a set of tools from his jacket. This'll be easy, he says, his voice filled with confidence. Jimmy watches the bike from a distance, still unsure. His mind races, but he says nothing. His gut tells him something isn't right, but he pushes the feeling down. The gang members exchange glances, then move into position. Tony starts working on the lock, his fingers quick and practiced. The sound of metal scraping against metal fills the air, but it's soft enough to go unnoticed by anyone nearby. Jack's bike is moments away from being taken, and the gang doesn't realize they're about to be in for more than they bargained for. Just as the gang thinks they have everything under control, a sudden noise from behind them freezes them in their tracks. It's the sound of a door opening, the door to the house next to Jack's garage. The gang members freeze, and for a split second, their hearts race. Tony looks over his shoulder quickly, but there's no one in sight. It's just a neighbor walking out to get their mail. But the brief distraction is enough to make Tony's confidence waver. "Focus, guys," Tony mutters, turning back to the lock. Almost there. They don't notice Jack yet. He's standing in the shadows of his garage, watching them with calm eyes. He's been aware of the gang for a while, having seen them hanging around the neighborhood before. But today, something told him to stay alert. Now he watches them carefully as they try to break into his garage. The gang is still busy with the lock, unaware that they're being watched. Mike is using a crowbar to pry the door open, working harder now, as the lock begins to give way. And then it happens. Jack steps forward from the shadows. His footsteps are quiet but firm, echoing slightly in the stillness of the street. He stands tall, his back straight, his eyes hardening, as he approaches the gang. "Hey," Jack's voice is calm but loud enough to make the gang stop in their tracks. It's not a shout, but it's filled with authority, an authority that comes from years of experience. "What do you think you're doing?" The gang jumps, their eyes widening as they turn to face him. Tony's jaw tightens, but he doesn't back down immediately. He tries to laugh it off, his confidence returning. "Hey, old man, this doesn't concern you. Just walk away, and we'll be on our way." But Jack doesn't move. He stands tall, looking directly at Tony, his expression unreadable. The gang members begin to feel uneasy. There's something about the way Jack is standing, something that makes them think twice. His posture, his calmness, it doesn't match their usual targets. "I'm not going anywhere," Jack says, taking another step forward. "You're not taking anything from me." Tony hesitates, unsure of what to do next. This isn't the kind of guy they usually mess with. He's no scared old man, that's for sure, but the gang doesn't back down easily. Especially Tony. He signals to Mike to keep working on the lock. "I told you, old man," Tony says, trying to sound tough. "We don't want trouble, just move along." Jack's eyes narrow. "You're not listening. This bike is mine. And you're not taking it." The tension in the air thickens. The gang members start to realize that they might have just walked into something they can't handle, but they're not backing down yet. They're still trying to figure out what to do next. The air between them is thick with tension. The gang members exchange uneasy glances, unsure of what to do next. Tony tries to keep up his tough front, but there's a flicker of doubt in his eyes. Jack hasn't moved an inch, his posture calm but unwavering. There's no fear in him, no hesitation. "Just get the lock open, Mike," Tony mutters, his voice low. "We'll take care of him later." Mike nods, his hands shaking slightly as he works on the garage door. He's trying to hide it, but Jack can see the nervousness in his eyes. It's not like their usual jobs, where they take what they want without a second thought. This feels different. The old man isn't scared, and that makes them all feel uncomfortable. Jack watches them closely, his eyes sharp. He knows how to read people, how to spot weakness. The gang is getting more anxious, with each passing second. They're no longer the confident criminals they were when they first arrived, they're starting to panic. Jack doesn't move, but he lets the silence hang in the air. He knows they're trying to figure out their next move, and that's when he sees it, the shift in their posture, the tension in their shoulders. They're waiting for him to make a mistake. But Jack doesn't make mistakes. Not today. He speaks again, his voice low but firm. "You think you can just walk in here and take my bike? You think you can intimidate me? I've seen things far worse than you. You don't scare me." Tony glares at him, but the words cut deeper than he expected. There's something about Jack's calmness that unnerves him. It's not what he's used to. The veterans he's crossed paths with in the past always had a fire in their eyes, a desperate edge to them. But Jack is different. For a moment Tony falters, his bravado slipping. He looks to Mike, who's still struggling with the lock. Mike's hands are shaking more now, his frustration growing. Jimmy, the youngest of the group, is the most uneasy of all. He's been quietly watching the situation unfold, his gut telling him this was a mistake, but he's in too deep now. He's already a part of this, whether he likes it or not. Jack steps forward again. His movement slow but deliberate. He's not in a rush. You have one chance to walk away. I'm not asking you again. Tony looks back at the other two, then takes a deep breath, his mind racing. The tension is almost unbearable. He wants to take control, but there's something about Jack's presence that makes him hesitate. Mike's hands finally release the lock, and the garage door creaks open, but instead of rushing to take the bike, the gang pauses. The weight of Jack's words hangs in the air. They've come this far, but they're starting to wonder if it's worth it. Is one old man really worth the risk? And then just when they think they've figured it out, Jack moves again. His eyes are steady, unwavering. The gang can feel it now. This isn't going to end the way they thought. The air between them is electric now. The garage door is open, the bike sitting in the dim light, but neither the gang nor Jack is making a move. The gang is stuck in a standoff, their confidence shaken, unsure of how to move forward. Tony looks at Mike and Jimmy, then back at Jack. The veteran hasn't flinched, his eyes calm, his body poised for anything. Mike clenches his fists, trying to shake off the feeling of unease. Let's just grab the bike and go, he mutters, but there's no force behind his words. He doesn't sound sure anymore. Tony shakes his head. No. We're not backing down now, it's just a stupid bike. But it's not just a bike to Jack. The veteran knows this moment is more than just a confrontation over an old motorcycle. It's about standing his ground, about showing these men that some things can't be taken by force. His hand tightens around the handle of a metal rod hidden behind his workbench, something he's kept for emergencies, something he's trained to use. Without a word, Jack takes a step toward them. His movement is quick, calculated. In the blink of an eye, he swings the rod with precision, knocking the crowbar from Mike's hands. Mike stumbles backward in shock, his eyes wide as the weapon slips from his grip. Tony's face hardens with anger. You don't know what you're messing with, old man. He yells, charging forward, but Jack is already prepared. He sidesteps Tony's lunging attack with ease, using the veteran's experience to his advantage. A sharp elbow to Tony's chest knocks the wind out of him, and Tony staggers back, gasping for breath. The fight is over before it even begins. Mike and Jimmy stand frozen, unsure of how to respond. They've never seen someone move like this, so precise and controlled. Jack doesn't need to fight dirty or with force. He's calm, steady, and every move is made with purpose. Tony tries to stand, but he's breathless and beaten, unable to get back on his feet. Jack stands over him, breathing evenly, not even winded. Leave, Jack says simply, his voice cold. Before I make you regret it. The gang is silent, stunned by what just happened. They've never been up against anyone like Jack. The realization hits hard, they've lost, and it's not just the bike that's slipping away from them. Their pride is gone too. They don't need to be told twice. One by one, they stumble back, eyes wide, trying to make themselves disappear into the street. Jack watches them leave, his face unreadable. He doesn't smile, doesn't gloat. He simply turns back to his bike, calm and composed, ready to ride once again. As the gang disappears down the street, Jack takes a deep breath, his shoulders relaxing. The tension that had built up over the past few minutes starts to fade, leaving a quiet calm in its place. He doesn't look back at the gang, there's no need. He knows they're gone. He walks slowly back to his bike, eyes softening as he runs a hand over the handlebars. He takes a moment, just standing there in the stillness of his garage, appreciating the peace he's fought so hard to protect. The battle was over, and he had won, not with brute force, but with quiet confidence, experience, and the understanding that some things are worth standing up for. He takes the keys from his pocket, glancing once more at the empty street. The world hasn't changed, but for Jack, there's a small sense of victory. He's reminded once again that no matter how tough the fight, it's always worth standing your ground. With a small sigh, he starts the bike, the engine roaring to life, filling the silence with a familiar hum. The ride is far from over, there's still freedom waiting for him out there on the open road. Jack pulls out of the driveway, his bike gliding smoothly as he leaves everything behind, just like he always has.